Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Nancy here from American Pet Professionals, and welcome back to another episode of Digging into the Pet Industry. We are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So, wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for watching. And if you're listening to a future podcast episode, thank you so much for listening. Today, we have a special guest on our show, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to her. You might know her already. Welcome to Amy Castro of Starlight Outreach and Rescue. Hey, Amy, thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is exciting being live.
It is exciting being live. I really appreciate you being here, and let's dig right in here on Digging into the Pet Industry. I love to dig in and find out your background. So let's start. Before you got into the pet industry, what were you doing?
I'm basically a speaker, trainer, consultant by trade. So I go out to organizations and help them improve their communication, develop their leaders, and treat their customers right. But I've always been a lifelong pet person, so I've always looked for a way to merge that.
That's really cool. How did you get into wanting to be a speaker and communicator?
I never really wanted to be that actually. I used to be terrified of public speaking and now that's all
Oh,
I do.
right,
But
right.
yeah, basically it was a combination of experiences that I had while I was in the Air Force and they were nice enough to get me a master's degree while I was in, and it was in human communication theory, and I realized that communication is the key to everything. If you can communicate effectively, everything in your life is going to be that much easier, less stressful, and more effective. And so I thought, how can I now share that with other people? And speaking and training's the way I figured out to do it.
Wow, that's incredible, and thank you for your service, by the
Mm,
way.
thank you.
Um, we both have communication backgrounds, so I totally get that, and we were talking a little before we went live about, just communication in general with some people, so I always am striving for better communication, and you're right, I totally agree with that. Like, if you have a good communication, people will be interested in learning from you and hearing from you, so that's really cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, how did you get started in the pet industry while with that communication background?
Well, I had always, like I said, I always loved pets. And for years, people would say, well, why don't you do more speaking in the pet industry? And my brain didn't kick in. I mean, they said speaking at shelters and speaking at rescues, which I do. But as far as paying my bills, that doesn't really work very well.
Right.
And then it kind of dawned on me, in the last couple of years that I can, target a different aspect of the industry, whether it's small business owners, veterinarians, or even, manufacturers and such. So, I thought, well, how do I break in? Because it's always tricky to break into a new industry. It's kind of like as hard as getting new clients in anything. And so I started off by reaching out and doing some writing in the pet industry and doing some free presentations and webinars and things like that. And that kind of got my foot in the door to getting to know people. And then it was networking from there.
What year was that you started off doing that?
Gosh. Well, I've been writing for Pet Age for at least 6 years. So it was probably,
Okay.
7, 8 years or so ago
Oh,
that I finally
interesting.
clued in that, hey, I like my regular clients. I do a lot of healthcare, government, things like that. But if I can speak to a group of people that have as much or more pet hair on their clothes than I do, it's my people. Like, I really
Right.
enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So I didn't realize it was that long. So you've been doing it for a while. As you mentioned, you have been writing for Pet Age magazine. And what led you to writing for Pet Age?
It was basically an outreach. I thought, well, where would be a place that I could get that communication message and that leadership message out to a bigger audience. And, I just kind of did some research on the pet magazines, and reached out to Glenn Pollan, the editor, and he was kind enough to give me a chance. And so I did a few like onesie twosies, and that grew into doing something every month in the magazine, which I love.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, in full transparency, Pet Age magazine was the first magazine that I started reading back in the 90s about the pet industry. It was the first trade magazine. So, shout out to Pet Age and to Glenn.
Woohoo.
It's a fantastic magazine. Hopefully, we'll get to see Glenn in person one of these days soon at an event. Usually, it's global, but hopefully, before that. So you've been writing for quite a long time, knowing how to do all those deadlines. It's a lot. I've written for a few magazines as well. I think I've had a few articles in Pet Age over the years, but when you're having to, meet those deadlines and come up with something new, that could be a challenge, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I think you have to obviously I take a lot of lead from Glenn because he's, hustling in the pet industry and communicating with people as to, what are their pain points, what are the challenges that they're facing in the industry. But then I also, through the animal rescue and through my, working with clients in the pet industry, I get to see a lot of that too. So it kind of helps build that list of topics that you say, okay, these are the things that people need help with. And,
Yeah.
it's a article a month. So it's not too hard to stay ahead, but you do
Yeah.
need to stay up on the trends for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You have to pay attention to what is going around.
Right.
Um, that is so cool. So, when you're writing for Pet Age, you also end up going to Global, but at Global, you have been a speaker. How long have you been speaking at Global?
Probably, I want to say at least, I think I started 2019, 2018, somewhere in that
Okay.
was my first one. My first global, I went and I kind of tried to finagle my way in through Pet Age. It's like, hey, can I come work your booth?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I just kind of did that, and then I was able to get in as a speaker, and then they kindly allow me to come back every year since then. So it's
So
been
I just have to say, I cannot believe we've both been speakers at Global. I think I was a year 2000. How we have not met in person is really crazy. And I was not, you were kind enough to have me on your podcast earlier this year. I think it was like January or February. And we
yeah.
were like, oh, we'll totally see each other at Global. And we did not because Global is so busy that you don't see half the people you're going to see. So that's really cool. I didn't know you were speaking for that long. So
Yeah.
this year, regardless of what's going on, we have to make a point to meet in
Okay.
person.
I will make a commitment to that. I promise.
Exactly. And what other type of, speaking sessions do you do besides, like, a trade show?
I mean, I go into what I like the most is to be able to go into an organization. So, I might fly to DC and drive to Pennsylvania to a veterinary practice there, or working with, kind of a smaller franchise system
Mhm.
to work with individual leaders, because it's one thing to present topics. And this is same thing with my own experience in learning. Information comes at you, you nod and you smile and you say, yeah, that's a great idea, I'll do that. But implementation is a whole nother thing. And
Yeah,
so being able to go in and being able to identify as an outsider what are the challenges and how we can intervene with this particular individual or with this particular team is just something that I think is super effective. So I like being able to go in and problem solve on site.
yeah, that's really cool, and it's also really cool for the people that hire you because they may not see it in the way that you see it, or you might be able to go boom, 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 and they're like, "How do we not see that?"
Yeah.
And that to me is really, a game changer when it comes to learning about how to communicate effectively and what you're doing to help them.
Yeah, it's so true. We're blind, we can't see what we can't see, right? We don't know
Mhm.
what we don't know. And so until
Right.
somebody is kind enough to point it out to us and then even sometimes if we know something is an issue, this is what I see business owners struggle with a lot is I know it's an issue, but and I've tried to address it, but it didn't work. And it's like, well, because you don't have you don't have the right tool or you didn't try the
Mhm.
right tool. And I always think about communication. I say this all the time. It's a toolkit. And so we start off in life with a pretty rudimentary toolkit. And then as we go along, we should be adding more fine-tuned special tools to the toolkit, but we
Yeah.
don't necessarily do that. So my goal is to give people those extra tools so that when they turn around and they reach for something, there's something good there to use, not just a hammer for everything, which is obviously not going to be super effective in all situations.
Right, right. That's funny. And do you work with small scale pet entrepreneurs like solo, or are you more of like a team and a company, or all of it?
Pretty much, you mean as far as the clients that I work
Yeah.
with, if they're
Hmm.
solos or I mean, anything from, an individual, like I said, a veterinary practice or a grooming shop, with a team of 5 to 20, up to larger organizations. It's just,
Okay.
just wherever the need goes, because it doesn't necessarily matter the size of the organization. I mean, you need that information for context, but a lot of what I do comes down to is how does a human being interact with another human being, whether it's a customer, a team member, a supervisor, whatever it may be, and it's not that different depending on the environment.
Right. So, what would be like a problem solving thing that a company would reach out to you for? Like, what's the normal type of thing that somebody says, "Hey, we need to contact Amy today for this."
team conflict is a big one.
Mhm.
Things where productivity is not being, where productivity is being impacted negatively because it's so focused on this lack of team interaction. And then I think the other one is the leadership aspect.
Mhm.
Many times people are, I might be a nice person. I might be able to get along with people. I might have been great in this position as a peer. And now that I'm in a leadership position,
Mm.
there's a gap in
Yeah.
knowledge and skill that's not there. And so I do go in and work a lot with developing leaders and business owners, managers, and things like that to basically teach them to lead.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. I did not know that that is what part of what you did. I know a lot of other things that you do in the pet industry, but
Hmm.
that's also so needed because if you are, say, in a position for a long time and you get that leadership position, that's such a huge adjustment to make, right?
Oh, yeah, it's
Dealing
enormous.
with now you have employees, maybe they were your peers in the past, but now you have responsibilities that you have to take care of that you didn't have before. And that could be a challenge with that dynamic of working with people. So
Oh,
that's so
yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I mean, I even have a class called Peer Today, Bus Tomorrow, making the transition because you think it's going to be easy and it's
Yeah.
not. The relationship literally changes overnight. And if you're not given the tools to make that transition successfully, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very painful. It can be very painful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really fantastic that you offer that. Is it all pet industry people? Is it all of your clients pet, or do you have a broad range of clients?
Okay, I hope my other clients aren't listening. I wish it was all pet, but it's not. I mean, I started off in healthcare.
Okay.
Texas Children's Hospital was one of my big clients for, 15 or 20 years.
Wow.
Um, and then got into local government, and just kind of created an expertise in that. And the pet industry thing has been relatively new. Like I said, I got to a point, it was probably pre 2020, but it certainly really came to a head with COVID and things like
Yeah.
that, that life's too short. And so I want to do more of working with, like I said, my kind of people. And so
Yeah.
I've really actively tried to pursue more pet industry clients in the last few years for sure.
I love it. So if anybody's watching and they didn't even know that this existed in the pet industry, you need to reach out to Amy because communication is such a I mean, listen, I've always say to people that like you'll get an email and it might be something that you're like you want to write back so fast, heated and mad and upset. I say no, walk away for an hour, go walk your dog, come back to it the next day with a fresh mind because a lot of times what you're reading is not at all what was said in the
Oh, yeah.
email because you have 500 things coming at you as a leader or somebody in the pet industry, even a solo business owner. You still have a million things coming at you and then you're freaking out and you're responding and the person's like I didn't even say that. So
Hmm.
step away. Your
Yeah.
email will be there when you get back. Communication is a really big deal when it comes to keeping your business reputation. So I love that you offer that because a lot of times people just don't think about those things. They just immediately go off the cuff to respond. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. I'll read an email. I'm like, "Ugh,"
I've,
and I
hey,
look back and I'm
I've
like,
done it too. I know
yeah,
better. I
yeah,
know better.
yep,
But actually,
yeah,
here's a quick tip.
yep.
Sometimes it's like, "No, I'm not walking away. I'm writing it now." Well, good. Go to a Word document and write it there,
Right,
or at
right.
minimum, take the return email address out of the
Out.
to field and then
Yeah.
fire away. Just don't
Yeah.
send it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny though because a lot of times I'm like, "That's not what that says." Then I
Yeah.
reread it again. I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah, you
god,
need
my
to cool
eyes are
off
playing
and
tricks on me." Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. I mean,
It's
we
so
do.
important.
We throw up filters when our emotions come into play, and the
Mhm.
filter can completely change
Yeah.
what comes through to us and also what goes out
Yeah. And don't
when
you
we're
think it's
communicating.
important to have like especially depending on say you have a doggy daycare or a grooming business to have responses pre-written that you can
Mhm.
quickly edit if somebody's upset about a service or didn't like, that their dog was matted and they had to be shaved or whatever the situation was, and then they're writing something back, they have it pre-written. I think that's so important to have stuff pre-written.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tell people that all the time. What are the big complaints that you get? Well, I
Yep.
mean, you're not going to answer everything,
Right.
but sit there and create your own FAQ document, and then
Yes.
you can copy and paste, and then tailor and customize it.
Yep.
And step two is make sure when it comes to actually speaking those replies, and if it's not just an email, train your staff to give the same, like not like robots, but you
Right.
don't want one staff member saying one thing and somebody else giving a completely different answer. Then it creates a lot of problems in your customer service efforts for sure.
You are preaching to my choir, Amy. I've been saying that for so long. Like, you have to, everybody has to be on the same page. Your training has to be the same. Yes, like not like a robot, but you do want that. That's so, I really appreciate you saying that. And if
Sure.
anybody's listening or watching, I hope you're taking notes because that was really good information. Okay. So, as far as the rest, you do a lot of things in the industry. So, aside from everything that you do there, you also are the head of an animal rescue. Can you tell us about Starlight Outreach and Rescue and what you do and how it got
Sure.
started?
Yeah. So Starlight got started in 2017. I was the head volunteer at my local municipal animal shelter and had
Mhm.
been for quite a while. And I received a devastating phone call from one of my volunteers that her 14-year-old daughter, who was also a volunteer, she was one of our kitten whisperers,
Mhm.
and took our feral hissy spitty kittens in and made them all lovey dovey. That she had passed away.
Oh no.
And her name was Emma Starlight Hyde. There's a whole
Oh,
story about her brother wanting to name the baby, and he wanted to name her Starlight, and they were like, "Yeah, maybe not the first name, but we'll put that in." And that was actually her middle name. So
wow.
immediately when I got that call, it's not like I hadn't thought about starting my own rescue. I had thought about it, but like
Yeah.
as soon as I got that call, I kid you not, like a light bulb went off. I knew exactly what I was going to call it. I knew exactly what the logo was going to look like. I mean, it was kind of crazy. So
Wow.
she unfortunately passed away in October of 2017. By December, we were up and running and had our, incorporation paperwork. I mean, I don't mess around when I decide I'm going to do something. So,
Yeah. Wow. That's fast.
yeah.
Animal rescuers take note.
Yeah.
Wow. So you started in 2017, 2018. So you had, being a volunteer, a lot of experience. I know a lot of
Mhm.
volunteers at animal rescues. So where did you go from taking it to from your municipal shelter? Did you have a place to do it? I know you have a farm property. Is that where you ended up having it there?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, I started off the evolution was kind of like me fostering in my house and spending a lot of money out of my own pocket, and or maybe occasionally asking for help from friends on Facebook, and then saying, well, a nonprofit rescue, at least my friends could write off their donations. And
Right.
so it was still very foster based, and still to this day is very much foster based. It's very
Okay.
hard, I think, in rescue, unless you're going to build it to $1 million of income to
Yeah.
actually have a hardcore facility that people can come in and see pets. But
Yeah.
um, through having a good volunteer network, a good foster network, we're able to maintain a decent number of pets, and then since then have created partnerships with pet businesses,
Okay.
to show animals there, so that we have those venues, as opposed to like everybody has to drive to my house in the boonies out here to the rescue ranch, as we call it. I mean, people do that, but it makes when you can create those alliances, it makes the whole job of showing and you know getting the exposure for the animals easier.
Yeah. And you're in the counties of Galveston and where else in Texas?
I mean, we are basically in the Houston, Texas area.
Okay.
So Galveston, Brazoria, Harris County. My primary volunteer base is in Friendswood, because when I started the rescue, that's where I had been living for 19 years. And then
Okay.
when it got to having too many cats, kittens in every bedroom and bathroom of my house and on my dining room table, I told my husband, "Hey, I think we need a bigger place." And so we moved out here to 7 acres, and we've got outbuildings for animals and things like that.
So is your rescue primarily cats and dogs, or do you have other animals as well?
Primarily, yeah, definitely primarily cats and dogs, but we do have. I actually just adopted out a pony, so the pony just got adopted, and
Very
then I've
nice.
got 3 donkeys. Anyone in the market for 3 donkeys? You don't have to take all three, but it's 2 and 1 because the two are bonded. But yes, we still need homes for our donkeys, but I've kind of limited myself to what I know I can. I hate to say turn over quickly, but in rescue, you don't want to be full and closing your
Right.
doors all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got to kind of keep the pipeline moving.
Nice, nice. So what has been the biggest hurdle to overcome when running a rescue organization?
I think getting and keeping volunteers. We have a
Mhm.
we have a great group of volunteers, but especially when it's foster based and you don't have a budget to hire cleaning crew, let's say.
Right.
If I would
Mhm.
again, if I was pulling in $1 million in donations and had an operation where I could hire a manager and hire cleaning crews and things like that, it would be a different thing. But when you're relying on volunteers to do that, the idea of volunteering for an animal rescue. I'm going to go and I'm going to play with kittens and puppies and it's going to
Right.
all be fun and really I don't need you necessarily to play with kittens and puppies. You can do that after you finish scooping the poop.
Right.
I don't say that to people, but I mean
It's it's
it's
not as
not all
glamorous as what people think.
exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Kind of like the pet industry, right? You thought you were going to be dealing with pets and you love animals and then you realize I've got to deal with poop. I've got to deal with angry people. I mean, we get
Right.
angry adopters, we get angry people who are rejected for adopting. I mean, it's you deal with a lot of people stuff, and that's a big challenge. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
probably getting the volunteers and hanging on to them is
yeah,
big
I think a lot of our animal rescue members and friends could definitely relate to that big time because I know that is a pain point for a lot of rescues. And it
for
is
sure.
funny that you made the point of I've said that a couple of times at Global, at Super Zoo, and speaking. I said, how many people here got into the pet industry to work with pets? All the hands go up. I'm like, how many people here got into the pet industry to work with people? In one of the sessions at Global, four people raised their hand and it was a full session. And I was like,
I'm
okay, so
surprised
we
it was
have
that many.
I know. I said, so we got to work on that. I said,
Yeah,
until they have the collars where your dog can walk in and it scans and like they buy their own purchases, which I'm sure will happen one day.
yeah,
And I want some, what do you call that from that residuals,
yeah. No kidding. No
right?
kidding.
Until they have that, like you have to work with people. So it's pretty interesting. So,
Yeah.
what can you say to viewers that, they have a big heart? They may not want to go and scoop the poop, but they want to help out rescues in their areas. What would you say to them? What could you tell them they could do?
Well, I mean, a huge thing that would take very little effort because rescues, at least mine, relies hugely on getting the word out on social media. So following those rescue, and this is the key thing, right?
Yeah.
Follow the rescue page. That's great. Looking, scrolling, yeah, that's nice. Clicking like or love or care, whatever, is also nice. It's a little better than just looking. But commenting is even better and
Yep.
sharing is even better than that. So
Yeah.
if you can do all of it, that's what really works those algorithms and helps us get the word out. Obviously, donating, whether it's donating material goods or whether it's donating money, it's we get donations, and I love it. I've got a lady that has a monthly donation set up for $10, and it literally makes me want to cry every time it comes through because for somebody to say, I've got $10 and I'm gonna spare that for you. I mean, I love my $500 lady that does
I understand.
does
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but it's like, I mean, it literally makes me wanna cry that somebody's
Aw.
willing to take that $10
Yeah.
and cares enough to do that regularly. The consistency is so huge because it allows us to budget.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, the big thing is if you just to be honest, like if you wanna volunteer, I wish people when they signed up to volunteer wouldn't check off and say everything that they're gonna do everything because then they don't. I mean, I've got 200 people on my mailing list and about 5 people, well, maybe 15 at this point as we've grown, that actually do hands-on stuff. So just, tell me, this is what I'm able to do. This is what I'm willing to do. Can you
Yeah.
use me in that way? And it's like, yes, I will find a place for you to do what you're able.
Yeah. I love that. And I also love be honest and like maybe you don't want to walk the big dogs. Maybe you can't walk the big dogs. Maybe that's not part of what you want to do, but maybe you're fantastic at social media, right? I know a
Mhm.
lot of rescues struggle with getting a good social media person. So if you want to be a volunteer, you don't even have to go to the rescue maybe to take pictures, but I think that's another area where I see a lot of our members that are rescues that struggle because they don't have anybody that can actually do that, or they
Yeah.
don't stick around long enough. So I
Yeah.
think that's really great that you have like the checkoffs and see what you are.
Yeah,
Um,
and if you don't communicate that, like I remember one lady in particular that came when I was still volunteering at the animal control, and she was very slight. And yeah, I think people think, well, I've got a dog, so I'll go walk dogs. It's like, well, walking your Shih Tzu and walking a 80-pound stray dog with
Yeah.
poopy muddy feet and long toenails and has never been trained,
Yeah.
you're gonna I mean, I think she lasted about 30 minutes before she was down on the ground kind
Oh,
of thing.
geez.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
that doesn't make for a good a volunteer coming back kind of
Right.
scenario. So,
Exactly.
and I think part of that is the organizations need to do a good job of orienting new volunteers. I mean, we try to do a lot of handholding, and we can't handhold forever. Otherwise, I might as well do it myself. But
Right.
in the beginning, at least to
Yeah.
orient you and really figure out where your sweet spot is, we try to
Yeah.
do that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good advice. I appreciate that. It's so true. And it's also just goes back to being like showing those leadership skills, right? Whether you're
Hmm.
in a business or if you're running an animal rescue and you're trying to figure out what volunteer would be best. A lot of people, that's all they want to do, like you said, is play with the puppies and the kittens, but they need a big dog needs to get out of the run. So you have to figure out who's going to be the best experienced and right person that knows what they're doing, right? Um,
Exactly.
because that could be like jailbreak when the dog first gets out, and then you just especially in a municipal, and it's walking down the row with all the other dogs barking. It's a lot of chaos, right? You have to know what you're doing, so or at least get the training. All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
You go ahead because I was going to ask you another
Well,
question.
I was just gonna say, one of my themes in my adult life, in whether it's training or in volunteering, is or in placing an animal for adoption, is fit. Like, I have a workshop called "Hire the Right Fit Employee Every Time." I when I talk about adoption, it's all about fit. It's not about what you want. It's not about what your neighbor has. It's
Yeah.
about finding that fit. So it's the same thing when you're volunteering. Is how can I find the right fit for this person? And it's the same thing when you're hiring. I mean, I think that's for business people, the biggest mistake they make is they look at the wrong fit factors, actually, or
Hmm.
they don't look at any. They're looking for a hot, warm body with a pulse, and that's it. So you're breathing, you've got a temperature, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and then they don't understand why nobody stays or why I have to be firing people, and I've got this revolving door
Yep.
of hiring, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into the upfront before you even start meeting people. And if you do that, you're going to have people that'll stick around a little bit longer.
Right. And it also goes back to your fit, goes back to your people that are checking off everything that they want to do.
Mhm.
And when you're hiring, if somebody's like, I can do everything, that's usually not
Yeah.
the case. So
Yeah.
you
Because
have
they
to
want to
make,
get in the door, and that's
of course.
understandable, but you got to
Yeah.
dig in and find out the truth.
Yeah. Find out what they're really good at doing and what they like doing. It's going to be better for your business, in my opinion.
Oh, 100% right. You are
Yeah.
100% right.
Okay, so you also have a podcast that I talked about before, which I was on, which we had a lot of fun. We were talking about, I think,
Yeah.
responsible dog ownership, right? On your
Yes.
podcast. So tell me a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast is kind of named after the rescue, so it's called Starlight Pet Talk. We're actually going to be rebranding soon, so you may
Okay.
see some changes, but the basics are going to stay the same. It came as a result, and everyone who's listening who's involved in rescue in any way, shape, or form, you're constantly getting those phone calls of people that want to surrender, the emails of people that want to surrender, or they found something or whatever it is, and you spend a lot of time answering those questions. And what I find myself instead of when somebody calls and says, I need to surrender my dog, it would be easiest if I just said, we're close to intake. We're not taking any dogs. We don't have room. Thanks. Try
Mhm.
this other rescue. But I don't know why I do it, but I always want to ask why, what's going on. And I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, that I've helped people problem solve and maybe rethink that decision, because the reason they were rehoming, whether it was a cat or a dog, was solvable. They just didn't have the resources or
Yeah.
the information to solve it. And so um I think the whole idea of being able to dig in and do that one-on-one was nice. I could have 10 phone calls a day and do that and help 10 people. But if I started a podcast, how many people could I put information out there that might be
Yeah.
dealing with that same challenge? And although every single episode of the podcast is not just about problem solving, because I try to look at the podcast from the standpoint of living your best life with your pets. And in my subtle message in my own brain is so that you don't surrender them to my rescue. Like, here's
Yeah.
all the wonderful things you can do with your pet. Here's how you can problem solve. Here's how you can make your vet bill cheaper, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Just trying to facilitate that relationship and keep pets in good homes.
That's awesome. So your ideal audience, would you say it's pet professionals, pet parents, or a little of both?
I would say it's most of it is targeted towards pet parents,
Okay.
but I wish more and we do have pet professionals that listen, and I wish that we would have even more of them because it's everything that we talk about is stuff that you could be passing on to your clients. I mean, some of it you probably already are. You might have been on my show talking about it
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a lot of pet professionals on the show, but I think that's probably a good piece of advice for anybody in business. It's like somebody comes in and they're looking for a particular piece of equipment, and it'd be real easy to say, "Yep, there it is," or "Nope, we don't carry that." How about asking why? Why, and maybe not like why in an interrogation way, but
Right, right.
what problems are you trying to solve with that bark collar, let's
Mhm.
just say, or what's
Yeah.
going on with your dog that you want to use that because you might have 10 other things you could sell them,
Mhm.
or other advice that you could give them, or other services that you could provide, and you're totally missing an opportunity by not asking the why.
Amy, it's so funny. I just literally did a Tuesday tip. I'm giving away some trade secrets to my members. Like
Uh-oh.
a week ago, I did a video and I said, when I was in school, I went for communication, but I took directing classes because my minor was television. And one of my directing teacher, or the only directing teacher for all the classes, he always said, answer a question with a question, which has stuck with me since then, right? Because and I said that in the context of if you don't have a product, like when somebody comes into your store, start asking them questions when they're asking you about it to get to the root to help sell that product or to help solve the problem so they don't, relinquish a pet. So it's so
Mhm.
funny that you said that because that has been on the forefront of my mind lately because I'm always like, I don't think enough people ask enough questions to
Oh my
help get
gosh.
those products sold, to get those pets staying in homes, to get the proper pet placed, right? Maybe they want to go and get a Great Dane, but they're not capable of walking a Great Dane because they're, a small stature, like you said earlier. Maybe
Yeah, it
a
sounded like a great
corgi is
idea.
better. I don't know, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like answering
Yeah.
those questions, and I think that it's such a great way to also build that communication, that bond, that meaningful conversation with somebody when you start asking them questions as well. So I love that you said that because
Yeah.
I just think it's so true.
Yeah, and it's something that kind of goes back to staff training as well, because
Yeah.
if your employees aren't doing that, you
Mhm.
are losing money hand over fist. You're
Yep.
losing opportunities. You're losing customers.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're losing the chance to do the right thing because
Yeah.
you could have helped them if you just asked a few questions
Yeah.
along the way. So it's so important.
Listen, I've come up with global sessions and sessions for them to do by being a quote unquote private shopper. Nobody knows. Like I'll go into a pet store and with my dog to give him a bath. And the bath is broken and they let me leave. They're more interested in taking video of my dog being silly because he's noisy than
Well, your
trying to
dog is
sell.
a superstar after all.
I know, but
I mean, he's sort
still,
of famous.
he's sort of famous. But no, but like I literally was like, you guys could have sold me this bath mitt. You could have sold me this. You could have sold me that. And I walked out with not making a sale. And guess what? That store is no longer there. So
Yeah,
anyway, but yeah, it's
yeah,
so true. It's so true because the way you're training your staff and doing all those things that are definitely going to help your bottom line. So I
yeah.
really love that you said that. So what do you find the most challenging when it comes to running a business and a nonprofit, speaking, writing, podcasting, running a nonprofit? You're busy. Do you sleep?
I sleep a lot, actually. I usually the last couple of weeks have not been so great, but yeah, I'm usually a pretty good sleeper. I think as you saw, you made a comment when you popped on today that I was already here. I'm here. I'm ready to
I
go.
love it.
The military taught me good time management and
Mm,
organization skills, and I've continued to try to hone those.
love
And
that.
I think I've also learned, and this is, I think, good advice that I was given that I try to remind myself of on a daily basis is that your to-do list is always going to be 40 miles long.
Hmm.
You're never going to get it all done today. But if you can prioritize and get the most important thing done today,
Right.
you've done the right thing.
Yeah.
And you can go to sleep at night and live with yourself. And
Right.
so that's kind of how I live my life. I mean, there's probably 50,000 things I could be doing at any given time, and it's like the question is, is this the best use of my time?
Mm.
And then one of my other favorite questions, which my daughter actually wrote a college essay on, because my question to family members is always, couldn't you be doing something more productive with your time? it's like, it's like, so I asked myself that too. It's
Yeah.
like, is this the most productive use of my time at this moment? If the answer is yes, go on, do it. But if it's
Yeah.
not, and you're just doing something that's a time waster, you need to redirect yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Do the hard stuff first because that makes the
Yeah.
rest of your day easier also.
Yep.
Which, the hard stuff could be almost all day, but try to do the hard stuff first.
Yeah.
That's what I always think. Get that out of the way, cross that off your to-do list, whatever it is that you're doing, and you can go, okay, now I can work on this and have a clear mind, not having that hanging over your shoulder, over
Yeah.
your head. I think that's
Yeah.
important.
Or at least chip away at it, I
Yeah,
think people take big things and they think, "Oh, I've gotta do it all at once." Like, I'm not
yeah,
the neatest, tidiest person. It's a good thing you can't see my environment here, but it's like, if I said to myself, "Okay, I'm gonna take care of this one thing. I'm gonna clean this one room, or I'm going to clear the desk, and that's all I'm gonna do." It's a step in the right direction at least,
yeah.
as opposed to, "Oh, this is too overwhelming. I'm just gonna leave and shut the door."
Right, right. Yeah, chip away at it. If you can get through those the harder tasks first, it'll definitely help. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think really reevaluating is this the time factor is so important. Like, is this what I should be spending my time on right now? Is a good
Mhm.
way because we have a lot of distractions, and you can get so easily distracted if you're not really paying attention to what it is that you have to get done. So I appreciate you saying that. So I'm going to ask you this: what defines success for you?
For me, it is having balance in my life.
Mm,
If I feel like I've spent my day, my week, the month in a way that has a good balance of meeting my personal needs, which I'm not saying I do this all the time, but I
right.
am, it's taking care of your personal needs, taking care of your family, if you've got kids, things like that, and then also taking care of the business needs at the same time. For me, it's definitely not about money or how many clients I have. It's quality over quantity in
Yeah,
many, on that aspect. It's like if I'm making enough to pay my bills and live the lifestyle that I want to live, I'm good.
that's good. I love it. I love it. Is there any non-negotiable that you have, like a daily non-negotiable?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Um, get up and take a shower. No, I'm just kidding. That is definitely a non-negotiable. Um, I think reviewing and reflecting. Like I like to
Mm,
be able to get up in the morning and kind of do that. Like, what does the day have? What does the day have on the agenda, kind of thing, and what's on the to do list, and taking the time to do that so that I'm positioned properly to accomplish as much as I can possibly accomplish, and then checking that the next day. I mean, that's one of the things that I always liked about having when I was in the Air Force. I had this big, and this is going to date me, blotter desktop calendar, a month at a view. And
mhm.
I've
I
always loved
remember
a month
those.
at a view.
Yeah,
I like a month at a view because it's not like when you have a day at a view and then you flip and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have that tomorrow. I'm completely unprepared for that because it snuck up on me.
yeah, yeah,
I like
yeah.
to be able to look ahead. So I think um, planning ahead, looking ahead, doing that predictive work, I think is a non-negotiable. It's got to be done because I don't like to live with my hair on fire. And
Right.
and I sure as heck don't like to live in reactive mode. I mean, that's another lesson I learned in the Air Force. Everything
Yeah,
was about being proactive and getting ahead of it, whatever it might
yeah.
be,
As
not
much as
waiting
you
for it
can.
to, yeah, not
Yeah.
waiting for it to slap you in the face
What
and be
about a
like,
daily? What about a daily non-negotiable for you outside of the work? It sounds like you need one.
yeah, I probably need one a little bit more.
Okay.
I mean, lately, I will say it's been, and it's just lately, getting in a little more exercise and
Okay.
trying to eat more effectively because I have noticed over the last couple months I've taken off 20 pounds,
Nice.
and I've got more energy. Things because I spent a lot of time. My eye doctor one time said, "Well, how much?" Yeah, I said maybe I need computer glasses. Well, how much time do you spend in front of the computer? It's like if I'm not at a live in-person workshop, I could sit at the computer for 10 hours a day, no
Yep.
problem.
Yeah,
And
same.
it's
I know.
like, that is not good for
It's not
anything.
healthy.
It's
Yeah.
not healthy. And
Yeah.
so I've been, luckily having moved to this place and having the 7 acres, it forces me to be up and about a lot more. I've got to go out
Yeah.
and do the chickens. I've got to go out and do the donkeys. I got to go open the gate for somebody coming in, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. But yeah, getting up, moving and taking care of your own, you can't take care of anything else if you don't take care of yourself. So
I
I'm
love it.
I'm trying to live that a little bit more instead of just talking about it.
Right, right. Yeah, my daily non-negotiable is to walk my dog, and I can't imagine having a farm because, literally, if I'm on the computer past 5, he will come and sit next to me and stare at
Mhm.
me like, "Lady, we didn't walk yet today." So, even if we went on a short walk, like a long walk. So, I think it's really important for me because it takes my brain away from the computer and I'm listening to nature and I'm walking in the woods. So, that unless it's like downpouring raining, I'm walking 365 a year. So, it's
Mhm.
really, really important. So, I love that.
Yeah.
So, yes, get out on your amazing 7 acres and
Yeah.
do that more. Shut your damn computer.
Well, actually, I was just going to say that because I was thinking, when you are self-employed or when you're in a leadership position,
Yeah.
um, it's so easy to take your work home. And my work is home, so
Right,
it's
me
really
too.
hard to get away from it.
Yeah.
But even for people who have a store or a brick and mortar business,
Mhm.
you go home and you bring it with you, and it's like
Yeah.
at some point you need to shut that off. Some
Yes.
point you need to close that office door, you need to shut that phone off, you need to shut that computer screen and step away.
Step
Step
away.
away.
Don't answer your emails at night. Like, you have to set up your
No,
own boundaries because if you were working for a corporate job and you were at home and you got an email, you wouldn't be answering. Most likely, you wouldn't be
you
answering it.
shouldn't be. You
I think
shouldn't be for
more
sure.
people answer at night or the weekends, right? When I get emails on the weekends, I'm like, it's Sunday.
Yeah,
Or Saturday, like whatever. So I think
yeah,
that's important. Yes, you might work on the weekends, but you don't have to let everybody know that you're working through the weekend to get stuff done. And that
yeah.
happens time to time, right? If you're at home, if you're working at home, if you're a
Sure.
retail store, you're working all the time. So you have to remember to
Right.
take those non-negotiables for yourself, which I know is really hard. And I think, a lot of people in the pet industry are just such they're not I don't want to say like workaholics, but they're so passionate and dedicated to their business being successful and their clients and customers that they end up working more than they should, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
I know
Well,
people, right? Yeah.
I'm so part of that too, I think that I see with my clients or my communication training clients is that where sometimes we're remiss in empowering our employees and providing them with the knowledge and skills to do what they need to do. If you and here's a good question to ask when your employees call you, because I've had people say, "Well, I can't shut my phone off. I can't not
Mhm.
answer my phone at night
Yep.
because my employees are calling." It's like, why are they calling you? Do they not know that by now?
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, they do. Well, then why? They're
Yeah.
calling you for reassurance. It's very unlikely they're calling you because they have no clue. That does happen, but
Right.
so when you answer that phone and they say, "Hey, I've got this, this, and this.
Mhm.
What should I do?" Your first thing should be, "What do you think you should do?"
Yeah.
And then, if they don't know the answer, great, you can give them advice, but you become an open door and you become a crutch for that person
Mhm.
if you always give them the answers. They never need to learn it on their own. "I'll just call Amy." Well,
Yeah.
then you're going to get calls 24/7 and you might as well just get used to it.
Yep. Yeah, and then people will take advantage after a while,
Oh
so
yeah.
that is a frustrating thing about being in a leadership position or a boss or something like that, so, I agree, yeah. It is hard for a solo or a small business owner to not answer that phone, I totally get it,
I know. Yep.
but you have to set up those boundaries for your own health, so it's important.
Yeah.
Alright, so is there anything else that, I didn't ask you about that you'd like to share for
I mean,
your
I think we covered a lot. I
Okay.
think, like I said, I would just encourage people to look for that balance in their lives. And I think when you find that, everything's going to be better. Your personal relationships will be better, your health will be better, your business will be more effective. Even your example that you gave about, walking away and clearing your head when you're taking the walk with your dog. I have
Yeah.
sat so many times banging my head against the wall trying to write something or resolve an issue, and it's like then you walk away, you get up the next morning and you sit and it's so crystal clear, but you would
Yes.
never have figured it out because you were
Yep.
so wrapped up in the stress of it that you can't see what's right in front of you. So,
Yeah.
definitely take those breaks and look for that time to get away and clear your head for
And
sure.
sometimes that might be where you have your best ideas when you're
Oh
clearing your
yeah.
head because 'cause you're like, "Oh my god, why didn't I think of this?" And it's a really simple tool is go to your notes app on your phone. Don't take too long if you're out in the wilderness or doing something good for yourself, out to dinner, whatever it is. Take the notes app, put it on the voice, and go blah blah blah. or into an email and send it to yourself. And then you have the idea, you won't forget about it. Because sometimes I'm like, wait, what was that idea that I thought of when I was
Exactly.
walking the dog? So you
No,
could
that's a
do
great
that. And
idea.
then, yeah, and you're not taking away from your time away from the computer. But I know a lot of times I'll have a really good idea when I'm out and about, and I'm like, oh, that was a good idea. I have to
Yeah.
write it down, but instead I voice record it and send it to myself in a message. So otherwise I'll forget until like 2 days later, 3 days later, I'll be rewriting something. Wait a minute, I had this idea already.
I know I've had that a couple of times. I'm helping people with their communication messages, and it's like, man, I was laying in bed and I had a great slogan, and I thought I'll remember that tomorrow. Not so
No,
much.
you got to
It's
write
like,
it
oh,
down.
but it was
Yeah.
so good.
I know. That's so funny. So people that are watching, how can they connect with you?
I mean, probably the best way would be reaching out on my website, and it's easy to remember because it's amycastro.com.
There you go.
And all of my contact information is on there. I'm pretty, because I sit in front of the computer 10 hours a day, I'm pretty quick to respond.
Yeah,
So I'm happy to answer questions or help you problem solve whatever you might need because, like I said, pet people are my people, and I want everyone to have successful pet businesses so that we can all take our best care of pets.
I love it. I love it. We are kindred spirits in a lot of ways. I don't
For
have a
sure.
military background, but we have other similar backgrounds, which I think is really cool. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being here. We'll put your website address in the comment section after the live. And for everybody that was watching, we really appreciate you watching. And if you have any comments or questions afterwards, tag us in the comments.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Happy rest of your Tuesday if you're listening.